The 16th chapter. It hurts me to set my gaze upon her. The beauty wets my eyes. I am looking at her as I walk backward into the shadowy arms of my first lover. I am sure, as the gap widens between us, that this woman could love me if I spoke my heart. Yet, I remain silent. In the recesses of my mind, I have already kissed her, walked hand in hand on the deserted beaches of my homeworld. I have made love to her and consoled her every worry. But I have also told her goodbye, forever. Last journal entry of Antonio Elias Meehan I. Fawn squirmed around in the black recliner, which moments before had been extremely comfortable. But somehow the space seemed less inviting somehow. The ever-staring eyes of the abyss, though high above, were crowding her, passing judgment. She began to calculate her odds of leaving this room alive, wondering if Alpha knew what was happening, and if he had enough influence with the noble to stop this execution. She promised herself she would give him no satisfaction by screaming or crying. Having already dodged the deceivingly hot clutches of death so many times before, she felt this ending was probably appropriate. She looked up to meet Deicide's eyes gazing back at her, finding no malevolence in them. To Fawn, he looked nothing like the man she saw hours ago. She had prepared herself to be sexually assaulted, ravaged by him and the black tentacles of that alien monster. But now he looked as though he was about to tell her she had an inoperable cancer. Deicide sat on a desk that was facing her. "Did you ever meet my wife?" Deicide said. "The egg thief?" Fawn said. "Yeah, I met her." "Did she tell you why?" Deicide said. "But I suppose it doesn't even matter why. I'm sorry." She could see that there was hurt in his eyes, but not from anything related to her. "I really don't know if I'm supposed to forgive you for something like that," Fawn said. "Is there a reason for any of this talk?" "The Abyss wanted to devour you," Deicide said. "But she has reservations about harming the family." "Oh, is that what I am to you now?" Fawn said. She wondered how they would look, those children that grew from the eggs they had stolen from her, and then why she should care. But she did. She hoped they would be better people than her, kinder, wiser, and gentler, if that was even possible from the stock which they came from. But there was something soft in this man, a part within him that the Abyss protected most of all. Perhaps he had given it to a few of his other children, as well as Rodella, and maybe that was why he favored her so much. Deicide sighed and then nodded. "Yes," he said. "If humans can believe they remain one race after all the mutations, then yes." "I don't want any part of this," Fawn said, "and neither would Alpha if he was paying any attention." "Even if I could return something you had lost," Deicide said, "as payment for your genetic material." Fawn's lips parted slightly, and she began to shake her head slowly. "What? What do you mean?" she said. "Come," Deicide said. She followed him down a dark stairwell which opened to a dimly lit gallery, much larger than the library it was attached to. It was filled with enormous tapestries and hand-painted frescoes depicting great battles. Columns of massive stone statues lined the center of the space. Heroic faces of men and women, defiant, haughty, all in triumphant poses, eternally cast in the role of haloed knights and martyred warriors. In front of each piece was a tome holding an individual's biography, or the history which led up to the battle displayed. Below this was the subject's dying words. Fawn watched as he walked ahead of her with strangely renewed good spirits, addressing the statues by pet names, tickling their feet, as if he were amongst friends. Fawn imagined their deaths being extraordinarily bloody and exceedingly public, with her assumptions being confirmed as she browsed a few of the biographies, filled with large color photographs. "Gideon Gitfell, the judge who wanted me charged for war crimes because I aided the armies of his enemies," Deicide said. "Did he?" Fawn said, scanning for a more interesting profile. "Yes. I served a single day of the sentence, to enlist some new soldiers, of course." Then Ica rescued me. I was just a pup then, and the abyss was just a shadow, Deicide said, arms clasped behind his back. That's it? You just left? Vaughn said. Oh no. We headed to his palace right after that. Marched the staff of his whole estate into the yellow pile as he watched from the courtyard. Then I sawed his head off with a bread knife, after I told him I was going to ravish his daughters, Deicide said. Fawn continued to keep her distance as she carefully moved through the statues. Classy, Fawn said. I never touched them. If you read the military handbook, you would know we frown on such things, Deicide said. And how does that make you any less of a murderer? Fawn said. Deicide appeared before her in an instant. It doesn't. But aren't you a little less nervous? Deicide said. Fawn shrugged and moved on, somehow relieved that her children would not grow up in a society where consent was optional. Black Brian. He was like you and your brother, an intrinsic. He could generate power just from the food he ate, Deicide said. Which was? Fawn said. People, Deicide said. Fawn turned away to face another statue located on a circular dais toward the room's center. And you've never had the urge? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Fawn said. Deicide shrugged. I'll drop it then, Deicide said. Whose are these? The nameplates are all blank, Fawn said. She watched Deicide's mood dampen. One of the lionesses. Ecocide the World Eater, Deicide said. As well as her sisters, Genocide and Vivicide. Damn, does she really look like that? She looks like a badass bitch, Fawn said. She is. She fears nothing, except maybe that I'll go on living. I received these from her, Deicide said, as he gestured to the 3 diagonal scars across his face. But they aren't finished. They aren't dead, Deicide said, pausing. I'm showing you this because if you fail to heed my warning, you'll be going right here, he said, pointing to the very center. There was a platform, but no statue. Fawn made her way over to Deicide and gazed at how large the foundation was. This was obviously the centerpiece of his museum of heroes. The stone he had chosen for the foundation was twinkling in the soft light from above. She hopped up on the circular slab and swung her feet. I hope you realize you're sitting on your own grave, Deicide said. And how would you know? Fawn said. This hall is filled with people who are just like you, Deicide said. Those gifted individuals that rise to the top of every society. That's how your world works, isn't it? The naturally superior monkeys rule the stupid and the weak. Isn't that how every world works? Vaughn said. No, not my world. Aren't you the god of all eaters? Only because I was the first. Time is only a friend to the eater. Enough. What does that have to do with what I've lost? The privileged on this ship only die because they choose to, Deicide said. Or I allow them. Fawn clenched her fist. Just say it, Fawn said. The abyss rose up from behind Deicide, and then placed herself before Fawn. Countless voices were heard from behind her maw, and then she retched up black mannequins, which twisted and jerked themselves into standing position. The vestige dripped away to reveal the tormented faces of Hirsch and Doe Dearborn, their name tags and badges still attached to the lapels of their shopcoats. It was you? Fawn said. I saw the Foss's ship. It must have been empty. The station was scheduled to be scrapped in a matter of hours, Deicide said. Where are they? Fawn said. Why haven't I seen them? Or my little brother? Sleeping. All of them, Deicide said. Asleep? Fawn said. A gifted engineer and a gunsmith. My wife wouldn't allow any of that to go to waste, Deicide said. They were sent to the Somnus Engineering Corps. Well, wake them up, Fawn said. If it was that simple to bring someone out of a vestige coma, then everyone would be a dreamer, Deicide said. Just know that they are alive, and I have them. What is it you want from me? Fawn said. To not war with me. But I know you can't ignore this. Somewhere inside you there is a voice that's telling you what you're beginning to believe is the right thing. My wife told me this feeling was normal. Most of the time, when conditions are livable, it can be ignored. This is also normal. Those who are unable to suppress it end up here. If you're lucky, you'll end up as one of these lovely statues, or somewhere on my wall. Fawn gripped the corner of the slab she was sitting on. I've never met a man who could put fear in my heart, Fawn said.